All right, good Wednesday afternoon, everyone. Thanks for stopping by for a check of your forecast. It is July 9th, year of our Lord 2025. We've got a handful of thunderstorms down in the south side of Texas, but we are quiet here in the Texas Panhandle, at least for right now. As we get into this evening, we may start to see a few storms pop off in the Sangre de Cristo mountain range area. You can kind of see some of those starting to fire there on the southern side of that mountain range. A few showers trying to pulse up in southeast Colorado too. We'll keep an eye on that stuff. Currently expecting it to be much quieter today than it was late last night and early this morning. A lot more activity a bit further to the south where you've got some better moisture aloft to work with. You can see some of this drier air in place out here. Storms will probably be more isolated if we end up seeing storms this evening. It is 93 degrees outside right now here in Amarillo, 92 in Boise City. Clovis, you guys are at 91 for the moment, and winds are calm around 0 to 15 miles an hour. Let's take a look at tomorrow's threat. Tonight, I do think we can't rule out a thunderstorm, but tomorrow we've got a better disturbance to push off the mountains as that ridge of high pressure starts to retreat to the southwest. So this could actually set the stage for some more scattered storm activity. It's going to be northwest flow stuff. It's going to get going near I-25 in the afternoon, probably going to be late into the evening hours or maybe even early on Friday morning before we're talking about that stuff in the Texas Panhandle. But we do have a marginal and slight risk tomorrow for severe weather. Biggest hazard going to be 70-mile-per-hour wind gusts. We expect the window for severe storms within the viewing area to be between 5 p.m. for the earliest start time, could linger as late as 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, as these storms approach Highway 60, they are going to run into some drier air. The atmosphere is going to start to stabilize as the temperatures continue to cool off as we head into the overnight hours. So we expect those storms to be at their peak intensity right up there in the northwest Panhandles and southeast, or rather northeast New Mexico, southeast Colorado. As they approach Highway 60, you're going to start watching them fragment and fall apart, but still could see them get as far southeast as Highway 60 on Thursday night. Friday, we have another marginal risk. Same story, just a different day. More northwest flow. Storms get going near I-25 on a scattered format, and they should start to push in a southeast direction. Tomorrow's also going to be a pretty hot day. I just want to show you again some of the kind of where we've been over the last 5 years compared to where we are this year for our triple digit tracker. Amarillo still has yet to see 100 degrees in the thermostat or in the thermometer this year. Now, 2020 was kind of a hotter year. We had already seen 4 triple digit days then, had 9 in 2022, which was a pretty brutal year for us. Last year was also extremely brutal, specifically in the second half of summer, late July and most of August. We even had some triple digit days in September last year, extending the latest time we'd ever seen 100 degrees here in Amarillo from September 7th to the 14th. We had actually increased that that latest triple digit day 7 days last year when we had that late season heat dome parked across the region. But this year we've been very fortunate. We've had some good moisture early on that's helped keep some of those temperatures limited. We're going to get very close to 100 tomorrow afternoon. We expect to be around 99 here in Amarillo. So currently we are forecasting us to miss the century mark, but it's going to be mighty close, something that we'll have to watch with an eagle eye tomorrow afternoon on where that thermostat ends up for the high temperature. We do expect a few to get into the triple digits up there in the northeast. Borger, Guyman setting to climb to 101, 100 in Perryton and Canadian, some mid 90s as you get further to the south and west. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of those highs forecasts compared to the record. So it is going to be hot, but it's not going to be record heat. You can see a lot of those records well into the 100s. I think the closest we may get is Clovis climbing to 96, which the record is 102, which was set back in 2020. Let's go ahead and run through your computer model. Again, storms tonight should be extremely limited in coverage. Going to see maybe a handful of them, but overall should be quiet for most of us. Thursday looks to be a more active day with a notable disturbance pushing through. If these clouds come through pretty early in the afternoon, that could be another reason we don't get to 100 degrees. We start losing some of the rays from the sun, and we'll start to see those temperatures again limited just enough to stay away from the century mark. But again, expecting storms to be scattered tomorrow, not guaranteed rain, but we will have a chance specifically in the northwest half of the region, and then may end up with a very similar setup on Friday. You can see again a cluster or segmented line of storms out there in New Mexico, racing from west to east out there ahead of the cold front. Depending on where this thing ends up, could be an area to focus on for some more scattered storm development Friday night into Saturday. And that's really our next weather maker too. That cold front crashing in with that upper level low, which is going to help drive that chance for some storms heading into this weekend. This is actually almost like a borderline omega block pattern where you've got this ridge out on the west coast, got another ridge out on the east coast, and you've got all of this moisture riding underneath the ridge from the Gulf, and again being fed into the central plains. When we get the disturbances aloft or that dynamic lift from these low pressure features, that's when we're going to start seeing some rain across the area. Saturday could be a pretty active day, just depending on where this low pressure is centered at that afternoon. If it peaks, or at least times out well with our peak daytime heating, could be very busy with a lot of storm activity on Saturday. So we're starting to grow a little bit more optimistic for rain chances, at least for that day specifically. But it doesn't look like that omega block pattern is going to leave quickly. We may kind of linger with that pattern for several days heading into next week. So while the first trough starts to dissipate, we do kind of have this inverted trough out here over New Mexico and Mexico, over kind of in the western side of Texas. We could get enough of a disturbance to kickstart some storms just periodically heading into next week. So I don't necessarily think we're going to be in a dry pattern. The overall synoptic lift may not be there, so we'll have to kind of wait until some of those smaller features ride through those ridges. But does look like it could be a wetter pattern, at least in a short term for the middle part of July. I know we had talked recently about models trying to trend a little bit drier for the second half of the month, but that Bermuda high just continues to bring in, really kind of setting up in the western side of the Atlantic. So that's just continuing to allow that moisture from the Gulf to flow into the southern plains. So we haven't really seen that high shift to the east like it normally would in the late summer months. And so we still continue to see moisture being advected into the state of Texas. We've been very wet recently. All that moist air is going to keep that temperature down. It's going to keep the relative humidity pretty high. And so really it's only going to take some more subtle features to get storms going, since we already have that moisture in place. It's like that positive feedback loop, which may continue into at least the rest of July. Maybe more spotty storm activity with a lack of really defined features, but overall, at least the chance to be above average for precipitation will persist. And with that omega block pattern, you generally would see your cooler air kind of in the central side of the U.S., make it a few troughs to dive from the Canadian provinces into the northern plains. Some of that stuff could spill as far south as Texas. With, again, some additional cloud cover and rain chances, our temperatures could lean a little bit colder than normal rather than above average. So definitely an anomalous year compared to where we've been. A lot of the analog years were kind of suggesting us to be more in like a pattern of 2012, which was pretty hot for us. But with all the recent rains that we've had in the first half of the year, the Bermuda high not shifting further east through the summer months, that's really just kind of kept this active pattern going. At least the moisture has been transported here, and we've had enough disturbances with that precip, or rather with that moisture present, to allow for precipitation to set in on a pretty consistent basis. So we'll see how long this trend will last. Eventually that Bermuda high may eventually translate or retrograde to the northeast into the northern Atlantic. If that happens, that's probably when we start seeing the lack of moisture being advected in from the Gulf, and we start seeing some of those drier and hotter days here in the high plains and in the second half of summer. So time will tell, but for now, at least the next week or two, things could still be relatively active. That's all we got for you. If we have any severe storms tonight, we will